this is just to give you an understanding of what the school enrollment process looks like at both the Toronto Catholic District School Board and the Toronto District School Board. Both of them are public school boards, and uh, with your different immigration statuses, based on case by case as we go through the material, you'll see that um, in most cases, students are fee exempt, and we don't want any misinformation that might be out there to inhibit children from accessing education. So we'd like to start with the land acknowledgement. The land where our office is located is on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas, Anishinaabeg, Chippewa, Haudenosaunee, and the Huron-Wendat, and is now home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also recognize that Toronto is covered by the Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and by the Williams Treaty, signed with multiple Mississauga and Chippewa bands. And the reason we start with the land acknowledgement is efforts towards expanding the knowledge that all of us as newcomers have about the true history of Canada's colonial past, and to understand that these individual nations have territories of vast area across the entire province. And also to acknowledge that some of us come from Indigenous backgrounds from our countries of origin, and having to be displaced or moving to Canada sometimes breaks the ties that we have. So making sure that we have that solidarity as well. A little bit about FCJ Refugee Center. We are a nonprofit organization that works with refugees and others at risk due to their immigration status. We have been working for over the past 31 years. We welcome anyone seeking advice, counsel, and support regarding their immigration situation and any issues that they might face alongside the settlement and integration process, and any seeking information on how to go about that as well. We also address systemic issues that newly arrived refugee claimants and other persons with precarious immigration status face in Canada, including lack of resources, marginalization, and discrimination as well. This image sort of gives you an understanding of the different areas and programs in our office. We have the anti-human trafficking program. Under the settlement and integration programs, we have the primary clinic, access to education, the youth program, food security, housing, and other settlement programs. And under the access to education and communications, we have the popular education, networking, some overlap with the youth and access to education program as well. Okay, now we'll get into what the education system in Canada looks like. For a lot of us coming to the Canadian education system, it might be different from what we are used to in our countries of origin. In Canada, the education system is provincially administered, which means each province, or in some of our countries, the similarity of state, each province is the one that has the legislation, the laws, and the direction on how education is offered to the students within that province, and it differs by the, so in Ontario, we have the Education Act, but in each other province, they have their own legislation. Also, the Ministry of Education is the Ontario government ministry responsible for government policy, funding, curriculum, planning, and direction of all levels of public education, including elementary and secondary schools. For post-secondary, there's another ministry. It's the Ministry of Colleges and Universities. And the Ministry of Education, just so everyone is also aware, the minister of that ministry, his name is Stephen Lecce, just so you know who your ministers are. If you have any questions or requests that you want to put directly to the ministry, that's the office that you would reach out to. Now, moving on to what we see as regularized versus precarious statuses in terms of your immigration status. Some examples of regularized status on the left-hand side are Canadian citizens, permanent residents, convention refugees, protected persons. And you'll see there's a little asterisk mark with the international students and visitors. It's because their temporary status is not, it is vulnerable. So it could change either regularized or precarious depending on how immigration policy changes. So the reason we say these four are regularized status, including the other two, are because there is some sort of surety that folks with this status can be in Canada and remain in Canada. But on the precarious status side, depending on how the immigration process develops, it could mean that someone is no longer has that authorized stay in Canada. So like a refugee claimant, a
Sorry,
refused refugee claimant,
sorry.
is is it cutting out again? Yeah.
Hi, good
Connection
morning,
is
folks. Just in case, I can hear Stefan very clear. I don't know if Miguel maybe might having some technical issues, but I've been listening to Stefan very well, just in case. Thank you.
Thank you. So some examples of precarious status are refugee claimants, refused refugee claimants. Again, we have the international student and visitors, and also folks who are caught in limbo due to immigration policy changes. So they might be on the pathway to regularizing, and then the policy changes. So they're stuck in limbo, waiting for the policy to be updated or for them to meet the eligibility of the new policy. Folks who are victims and survivors of human trafficking, whether that be sex trafficking, labor trafficking, or now in more recent years, education as a form of human trafficking. Also folks who are involved in sponsorship breakdowns, so either a partner or a family member who has sponsored you, the person has entered Canada and then they no longer wish to go through with the sponsorship, and there's a breakdown in that relationship between the family member and the sponsoree. And while you're going through that process of the breakdown, that could mean that you have precarious immigration status. And also, finally, anyone without official immigration status living in Canada. So that's someone who's either lost their immigration documents and cannot access a copy of that, folks who are in Canada longer than authorized stay, or folks who entered Canada irregularly and haven't applied to regularize under any stream. So these are the different statuses that could be considered as precarious, and which means that accessing education might be a little more difficult, but it doesn't mean that people with these immigration statuses are not allowed to access education. So coming into the Education Act for the province of Ontario, this is the major legislation that precedes any form of administering education in Ontario. And this section of the Education Act is the one that we use supporting newcomer families, because it's, as you can see here on the screen, it says a person who is otherwise entitled to be admitted to school and who is less than 18 years of age shall not be refused admission because the person or the person's parent or guardian is unlawfully in Canada, which means unauthorized immigration status. So above this, you can see that the Education Act was amended in 1993 to add and ensure that minor children, so that's under the age of 18 and below, are not denied education because of their immigration status or that of their parents. So if the child is here without status or with a precarious immigration status, and the parent has regularized status, generally that's not an issue. But if both parent and child have precarious status, or one parent has is non-status and the child still has status, in all of those cases, under the Education Act, the children under 18 years of age are able to go to school. But we see that unfortunately, some of the boards don't understand that, and some of them also misdirect family. So understanding how to access primary and secondary education, what are some of the rules and some of the wait times? So school-age children who have arrived in Canada as visitors must wait 6 months before entering school, because technically 6 months is the general amount of time that's given on a visitor record or an ETA. And unless otherwise mentioned, longer or shorter duration, that's the allowed time someone has to stay in Canada. And the 6 months is calculated from the date of entry. So you might have a stamp on the passport, you might have your boarding pass, or you might have your ticket itinerary as an email. So these are different ways to identify the date of entry. Also, school-age children who have filed a refugee claim at the port of entry, or if their family has and they are listed as dependents on the case, they can enter school immediately as they will have the letter of acknowledgement of claim, also colloquially called the white paper. Or if they're fortunate under the One Touch program now to get their brown paper, which is the refugee protection claimant document that has your name, signature, and photograph. Both of those documents are acceptable forms of status documents. For school-age children who have filed a refugee claim in country, so an inland claim after they've entered, they must wait until they receive their refugee documents to be able to enter school. And I believe now through the portal, it's taking up to 2 weeks, and then you'll be able to get your letter of acknowledgement of claim. And once you have that, you'll be able to access school. Finally, for school-age children whose parents hold a valid study or work permit before the child enrolls in school, they also enjoy the same fee exemption as domestic students and also as other newcomer students that fall within the categories. Now, look, we did see how the education system is administered in Canada, but in Toronto specifically, the Ministry of Education, that's the province-wide ministry that oversees the entire education system in the province of Ontario. But in Toronto, the two school boards that are the public school board, the TDSB, the Toronto District School Board, you can see the logo on the top right-hand side in green, the apple with the full name there, and the TCDSB, the Toronto Catholic District School Board, and you can see the logo of the TCDSB as well on screen. So this will help you distinguish which school board falls in Toronto, because if you go towards the Mississauga if you go towards the Mississauga region or the York region, the school boards will start to change as they'll fall into the Peel region school boards and the York region school boards. So if you're able to identify one of these logos on a school, it means you're still within the Toronto region. And the difference between the two logos will help you distinguish if it's the public general school system or if it's the public removed school system, which is the TCDSB. Okay, so now we're going to get into the enrollment process and who's responsible at which board. So at the TCDSB, newly arrived students within the ages of 4 to 13, so that's elementary school, will be supported directly at the home school at the elementary level. So you could go to the school, you can ask for the enrollment document, you can take all the required documents for the enrollment process, and the school should be able to support you. If it be anything else, they'll ask you to fill out the SOAR portal, the SOAR portal online. And once that's filled out, it'll assign you a school and the school will follow up with the enrollment. At the secondary school level, so ages 14 to 18, the high school level, you'll generally be redirected to the orientation center. I know the slide says guidance center, but the official name is the orientation center for an English and math assessment test. And based on the scores from there, the student will be allocated into the grade level of their capabilities. So generally within the elementary level, you're placed into a class based on your age, but at the secondary level, you're placed into a class based on your how far you've advanced in the curriculum. And you'll see an image below that shows you the contact information of the orientation center and how to book an appointment as well. Now at the TDSB, newly arrived students will be directed to the Office of Admissions and International Students. So you can see the contact information of the ISAO, the International Students and Admissions Office. It's located at 5050 Yonge Street. And if folks are being directed to this office, generally it means now what we're currently observing is that the school is not aware on how to do the enrollment and they might be giving wrong direction. So if you're in a situation like that, you can reach out to us and we will be able to support you with the process. So what documents are required for the enrollment process? You would need the
Excuse
passport.
me, Stefan, I have a question here. Sorry to interrupt you. I know
No
that you
worries.
don't have access to the screen, so that's why I'm just jumping.
Yeah.
So I have a question in regards of like the English assessment.
Mhm.
So, let's say like I have a family, a Spanish speaker family that I provide an orientation about the Toronto District School Board. So for if they don't speak any English, so
Mhm.
this is only an assessment, or they will be referred to specific like basic English or something like that, or how it goes, like just to understand a little bit more about that stage.
Mhm. That's a good question. So for non-English speakers, they would still have to take the assessment test just so the school is able to place them in the required grade level of English they need to take. They will also be able to request additional ESL classes, so they have that in their part of their daily curriculum as one of the classes they're taking. And also the school boards will request the grades from their previous school. So if they've attended school in a different country and they've just graduated that class, the school will ask for those transcripts and compare that to the Toronto curriculum and then place them in the correct class based on that.
Oh, so basically they will be attending both things at the same time, like the ESL program plus the elementary or high school uh, grades, I guess, level.
Exactly. It'll be in the
Okay,
same school. It'll just be an extra class that they take.
all right. And another question, just in regards to
Mhm.
the enrollment process, like do you like if someone, because we used to I'm from the Red Cross,
Mhm.
we used to like mention to our clients in terms of like the enrollment to touch base with the Toronto District School Board, but let's say like they're looking to be in place in a Catholic school,
Mhm.
is that Toronto District School Board will refer, or would you suggest for our clients to speak directly to the specific board?
So I would actually suggest that the client speak to the school, the home school
Oh,
first. And
okay.
if they're redirected to the board, what we are observing now with the TDSB is the schools are told that they cannot do enrollment for a lot of newcomer families. And the TDSB is giving wrong information. They're telling
Oh,
them they have
wow.
to register as international students.
Okay. Oh,
So
wow.
to
That's
avoid
very
that,
interesting. Yeah.
we would suggest them to go to the school, and if they have issues there, to reach out to a frontline organization and then have direct advocacy from the organization to the school board.
So basically, Stefan, is like for like any newcomers or refugee claimants,
Mhm.
like to try to reach out to any community agency around the neighborhood just to find which school is nearby and just to knock on the door, basically.
That's one way. The other way is I'll go in a couple of slides. So
Okay,
I
yeah.
just scroll
Sorry
to
about
it.
it.
It'll show you
Mm-hmm.
the locator on how to find your home school.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Thank you.
No worries. Okay, I'll quickly go over what the documents required are, and then we'll see how to find the homeschool. So the documents required are the passports for the parents and the children. So any parent that's in Canada and also the child's passport. You would need the birth certificate of the children. And if you'll see at the bottom of the site, if it's a TCDSB school, you'll also need the baptismal certificate of the child or the parent, and it's only required for elementary school, not for secondary. So if they're in high school, they don't need to show proof of any connection to either the student or the parent being baptized in a Catholic church. And then you also need two proof of address uh, in the parent's name. And if you're unable to get within the parent's name, like a rental agreement, if the landlord or the person whose place you're staying at can give you a letter acknowledging that uh, they are living at that rental property and you are also living with them, that could be used as an additional proof. But generally what we suggest is to have the rental contract, a bank statement or a letter from the bank. And it's also very useful for families to have a bank account. So if they don't have one, suggest that they open one. Also a phone bill. This can be taken online from the phone service provider's app as well. And this is another requirement that families would need to have. They would need a Canadian phone number in case of emergencies or any other communication that the school needs to send to the parents. So with those two documents, you already have two proof of address. But if they are able to get other documents like a utility bill, paying the internet, paying your hydro and electricity, those are other things that you can use. Also for refugees, the refugee status document, which is the letter of acknowledgement of claim, or the refugee protection claimant document. If they're an approved refugee, you also have the notice of decision that you can use. These are different documents that are available in that category. For folks without status, entry stamps on the passport, airline tickets, or your boarding passes from the day you entered Canada. And if families don't have these documents, say CBSA didn't stamp your passport and you didn't know that you had to keep your boarding pass and you threw it away, and if you don't have access to the email that you booked your flight tickets on, other ways that we have used in the past, we haven't seen that situation recently, but we have seen if a family has opened a bank account for the first time in Canada, using the day they open the bank account, a letter from the bank, and then writing a letter from the organization side. Or if they've been renting a place for more than a year or 6 months in Canada, you can say that the family has been living at this address. They don't have proof of entry, but they haven't moved. So these are different ways you can show proof of entry date. And finally, immigration documents. If the parent is a study or work permit holder, having the valid study permit or the valid work permit, because the school boards will use the expiry date on those documents as a way of validating how long the child can study in the school fee exempt. Okay, now we will go on to find how we can find our local TCDSB schools. So at the secondary level, unfortunately, there's no way to search for your address and find the school close by to you. It just has a map of all the secondary schools in the TCDSB. There are only a few that they have for high school. So you would have to see where your address is, zoom into the map on your address, and then look at the ones that are close by to you. With secondary school, I will mention that if the home school is full, they will allocate you to the next closest school. And that's the unfortunate part about secondary school. Sometimes students have to travel quite a distance because there are just a few within the TCDSB. On the other hand, with the elementary school, you can actually type your address into the search bar, and it'll show you once you click search, it'll show you where your house is, and it'll show you which is the school closest to you on the map, and then you'll be able to call the home school. With elementary school, if it's your home school, even if the school is at capacity, they are the ones who are responsible of either enrolling the child within the home school or the school that is the closest to the home school. They will have to redirect you there and make sure that the child is enrolled. So that's the difference between enrolling in elementary and secondary. The responsibility is on the elementary school, but at secondary school, it's the next closest one that will be allocated. With the TDSB, it's a similar process. So at the TCDSB elementary locator, you can type the full address, but with the TDSB, you just type the name of the street, and then it'll take you to a page. And based on the street number, the number of your house, you might be allocated to one school or another school within the home school area. So with the TDSB, it's more the number of the house and also the area that you're in. Sometimes it's all the same school, but sometimes it could be different schools based on the house number. And all of the links are linked through the slide. And once we're done with the webinar, we'll be posting it on our website, so you'll be able to download and click through any of the links. So where can you enroll elementary school at the TCDSB? You can either enroll in person, so take all the documents to the school, or you can click through the link here. It'll take you to the SOAR elementary school portal, and you fill out all of the information. You can upload the documents on the portal after creating the account, and it's sent to the school. And once you submit, you'll be able to download a PDF of all your submission answers. You can reach out to the school and ask them to support with the enrollment process. At the TDSB, it's a similar process. You can either take all the documents in person to the school, or you can create an account through the TDSB website, submit all your documents, and complete the form online, and then follow up with the school. Similarly, you'll be able to download the PDF with all your responses. With the TCDSB secondary, there is the SOAR secondary school portal. So you can create an account. If you already have an account, you can log in, fill out all of the required information of the student. In this case, you don't need to submit documents online because you'll be redirected to the orientation center for an assessment. So if you're working with a settlement or frontline organization, something you can do for families is once they complete this online portal, to review what the PDF says, it generally suggests two high schools that are closest to the student's address. And you can call the orientation center and follow up on booking an appointment, or you can send that email on behalf of the student and copy the parent on that email. So that's the process with the the secondary TCDSB. Now I think I can open it up for questions, but if you need support with obtaining any letter or to secure your enrollment letter after the process has been completed and it's taking some time, you can contact FCJ Refugee Center. We have contact to some of the local trustees at the TDSB, and at the TCDSB, we are connected to one of the folks on the board. So if you're having troubles with general access, even after following all of the steps that we went over, you can reach out to myself or Natalia. Our contacts are here on this slide, and we'll be able to connect you with the relevant school boards or the relevant people within the school boards to support with the enrollment. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen so I can see folks and answer any questions that you might have. So if everyone is good and we don't have questions right now, I think we're good to wrap up today's session. And once you're able to process all the information and absorb it in, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you everyone for attending as well, and look forward to connecting in the future. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.